when I finally realized what cows go through and how unhealthy it is. And I was angry about the food pyramid. It's all about big business. It's all about lobbying.
Hey, Empowered Vegan Lifers, Ella here, and I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. I sat down with filmmaker Allison Argo, and so cool, I met her. One of our Vegan Life Coach Academy members, Jennifer Torkin, works with Allison very closely, and she introduced us when she heard this story. Ann and I told of us starting Hogs and Kisses Farm Sanctuary, and the story behind that, with the pigs, we are likely to have first come live on our farm when we get it up and built. They're coming from a farmer who fell in love with their pigs and couldn't send them to slaughter. And so we have been, if you don't know already, we have been sponsoring those pigs as they wait for their forever home. So that was very much in line with Allison's latest documentary called The Last Pig, which I had the privilege of watching this past weekend. And let me tell you, you guys, this is not one to be missed. It is a beautiful, beautiful story, film. And Allison is a beautiful human being. So I cannot wait for you to get to know her as I have started to get to know her recently. She's a producer, a director, editor, writer. Her films have won 6 national Emmys, DuPont, Columbia, and over 80 awards internationally. Argo is known for her emotionally charged and deeply personal films, in particular, her intimate portraits of abused and endangered animals. The nearly 24 films she's produced, directed, and written have all been broadcasted by PBS and or National Geographic and have reached audiences worldwide. The Last Pig continues Argo's mission to provide a voice for those who are not heard and to deepen understanding and respect for all beings. As I said, you guys, she does fantastic work and is making a huge impact on the lives of animals, on the planet, and on the lives of people as well. So here we go. I'm going to let you jump right in to this amazing, amazing interview. Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining us today.
I am absolutely delighted to play with you for 45 minutes.
Yes, yes. And I want to say before we get started, first of all, just thank you. Thank you for all that you do for the animals, for the planet. I watched your latest documentary, The Last Pig, which we're going to be talking a lot about, and it's extraordinary. And I get like choked up a little bit thinking about it, but I want to thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, as a filmmaker, a lot of times you're kind of working in a vacuum, and then you put your baby out there. You work for years to create something that will have some sort of positive impact. And it's when you do hear back from people that it's so meaningful, because I'm just working away in my little workshop. And so it means a lot to hear a reaction like yours. So thank you.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Do you mind just sharing, first of all, how you got into filmmaking in the first place?
Absolutely. I was raised in the theater, a little summer stock theater on Cape Cod. So I think I absorbed storytelling, just the art or the craft of storytelling. I osmosed it as a child and a young adult. And then I went into acting because it was kind of my family profession. So I went into it professionally. And then I guess it was in my 30s, I started watching material about gorillas and reading about gorillas. And I became really concerned about their welfare and their survival in the wild, because Diane Fossey's work was coming out. And then I started learning about them in captivity. And that was the first time that this sort of a spark ignited a concern for animals that we've taken out of their wild habitat or even animals that are still in their wild habitat, but they've been so compromised, and we're pushing in on them. And I just discovered that I had a tremendous compassion for these individuals who, for the most part, don't have anybody to speak out for them. They can't go into court and represent themselves, or they can't argue with you, or so it's not that they don't have a voice. Sometimes I used to say, I like to give voice to animals. They do have a voice, but we don't listen, and we can't understand, or we choose not to understand. And so that started it. I didn't know the first thing about making a film, but the peak for me was when I met a gorilla named Ivan living in a shopping mall, really tacky little shopping mall in Tacoma, Washington. And this was 33 years ago, maybe. And it was perfectly legal. He was a silverback, full-grown, magnificent gorilla living completely alone, isolated in a little concrete pit, basically, and with a plate glass window. And the fact that it was absolutely legal and somewhat accepted was so horrifying to me that I decided that I was going to figure out how to make a documentary. And it took me 3 years. Fortunately, my husband at the time was a wonderful cinematographer, and our best friend was a sound recordist. And so, we shot this film, and then it took me 2 years to learn how to edit and write. And, I figured during those years I went to film school, and my reward at the end was I had created something that was different. And I think the world was kind of ready for different, at least National Geographic was. And so they made me an offer when they saw the rough cut, and it aired, and we got Ivan. The most important thing is we got Ivan out of that horrible situation, and he was sent. We created something called the Gorilla Relocation Fund, and raised funds to move him. And so it was, that then I was just totally smitten. It's like, if film has this much power, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And of course, there's not enough time to tell all the stories that need to be told, and to speak up for all of the individuals and the species that need us to really reveal their struggles. And, I see, for me as a filmmaker, it's my responsibility to share these stories so that people can make informed choices in their lives.
Oh, I got the chills all over my body when you talked about him getting released. Thank goodness. Thank you.
Yes. Interestingly enough, though, he was able to interact with other gorillas, but he chose human. He was more, it makes sense. That was his life. He had been brought in from the wild at, I think, 3 years old, maybe 3 months old.
Wow.
Oh, the things that our species has done are wacky. But I feel like now, and I know you do too, I feel like we're at a tipping point and a turning point. And I think our consciousness is being raised. And I think we're realizing that we are not the masters of, if we are the masters of this planet, we're doing a very poor job. And it's time to step back and support the natural forces that are designed to, to function on this planet.
1,000%. And one interesting thing that I often think about is so many people have a heart and compassion for some of these beautiful wild animals, like gorillas and elephants and rhinoceros. And a lot of times that doesn't translate then, though, to farm animals.
Absolutely not. It took me a long time. I have my eyes fairly wide open, but it took me a long time to realize just how compromised they are, and how they're just trapped in this. And they were once wild animals. We've domesticated them, but still they're living, thinking, highly social, wonderful beings who we just exploit for our own, palate, really. We don't need to eat animals, as you have learned and as I have learned. In fact, I feel so much healthier without eating animal products. It's just amazing. And you become so much more conscious of what you're putting into your body too, when you leave animals off your plate. But you're right. There are a lot of people who are dedicated to rescuing dogs and cats. And then they have a fundraiser and they serve pork sliders. And it's like, where does the disconnect?
Mhm.
These, pigs are considered more intelligent than dogs. So
I was just watching a show. It was called, I believe it was called Amazing Pigs. And they set up a little experiment and found that pigs actually maybe one of the animals that have self-awareness
yes.
in a big way. And so they had a mirror in front and a divider, and the pig could see the mirror and they could see food on the other side of the divider through the mirror only. And the idea was that if the pig moved toward the reflection, it might think that it's another pig. But that didn't happen. That pig knew exactly what was going on. He turned right around, walked around the partition, and went right for the food. So I thought that was just fascinating.
Really great. Yeah, you know what else? They have an amazing sense of humor.
Tell me about that.
They can laugh at themselves. I mean, Bob, the farmer in the film, he's just fantastic. And he spent 10 years, immersed in their lives. And he said that, their center of gravity, he used to say, is really, it's kind of low on the ground because their legs aren't that long and they're very large bodies. And, and they start running and running and running, and they inevitably trip over themselves and go rolling. And then they kind of stand back up and chuckle and look around to see if anybody saw them tumble and roll. They're just absolutely delightful, so full of joy. I mean, to watch a pig eat something that the pig enjoys, like an ear of corn, it's just infectious to see the joy with which they savor that. And yeah, they're just fun. And another thing that Bob used to say is they really adapt quickly. I mean, if they encounter adversity, they can adjust to that fairly quickly. Maybe that's why they were easy to domesticate. I don't know, but they really, really deserve a lot more than we give them.
Yeah. So speaking of pigs, let's talk about your latest documentary, The Last Pig, which again I saw, and just a remarkable film, beautiful. And we'll talk about how you did it, but how did that one come to be?
Well, as I said, I was one of those people who didn't make the connect between, I actually, to be honest, I've been vegetarian since I was probably 17. Not entirely though, because I just, chicken seemed like it was never once alive. I just didn't get it. But I'd make a film about elephants and just live, sleep, dream elephant. But then I was okay with eating something with chicken in it. And this is sort of a long story, but I guess you could cut it out if it doesn't work.
Yeah, no.
So I was filming circus elephants, and it was really, really challenging because the lives that they lead at the circus, when they're on the road with the circus, it's very grueling. They're up night and day. They're being trucked from one spot to the next. They constantly have to adjust. They're chained all the time, except when they're in the ring performing. And so, I was already a little bit like, oh, this is just not right. And then, so we were following them in the early hours of the morning. They arrived at I think it was Bakersfield, California, which is a very arid, not a lot of vegetation. But I remember they pulled up and they opened the door to let the elephants out, and the elephants started kicking in the sand and were really upset. They started trumpeting and really, really agitated. And the elephant trainer keeper said, oh, I think it's because this used to be a chicken slaughterhouse, a chicken farm slaughter. I don't even know what you call it, processing plant. And they, I swear they picked up on that, and they were aware of that. That for me was an absolute turning point. It was like, how can I not have that degree of consciousness? Well, I don't think we do, actually. Elephants are remarkable, remarkably deep, and they have a means of communication that we can't even come close to. But that flipped a switch for me. And so I more and more as I went through the films that I made, as I made films, I thought, boy, I really should speak out for the animals caught in the farming industry. But I'm not a violent and graphic films really have their place. I'm very appreciative of them. I'm one of those people who can't actually watch them, but I know that they have served a purpose for other people. So I just didn't know how I could tell the story of animals caught in the farming industry without being graphic. And then I read a blog. A friend sent me a link to a blog that this farmer had written, and he was on the cusp of consciousness. He had become conscious that the pigs, that he had been a humane pig farmer for 10 years. And he just, again, for him, a switch flipped, and he realized that these animals are highly intelligent. He really liked them. They had taught him so much about being social and about forgiveness and resiliency. And so suddenly he just couldn't bear to take them to the slaughterhouse any longer. But he was sort of stuck in this life that he had created. All of his money, he leased the land from neighbors, and all of his money was tied up in pig farming, and he had people who he'd promised the meat to, and it's just an ugly mess. And he was trying to find a way to, he's trying to transition out. So I thought, oh my God, that would be an amazing story to document. And I thought, oh, I know somebody else is already probably doing the story, but I'll reach out to him. And he, to make a long story short, he said yes in the end. And so we followed his transition for a year. And actually it was about 9 months. And we would spend a week every month with him. So every 3 weeks we'd return to the farm and, witnessed as the herds of pigs thinned out and dwindled. And he was able to send 8 pigs to sanctuaries. So that was at least a happier moment, but it was pretty heartbreaking.
How did you do that? I mean, just heart to heart, having to, and I love the fact that this film is so beautiful and so deep and so simple in a sense, and that you don't show, there's really not that, no graphic really images, but the emotion is so strong, and you were there when these pigs were going to slaughter. How did you cope with that?
There were only 2 times that I actually drove to the slaughterhouse, and one time we actually went in, and it's interesting because I was so focused. I felt it was really, really important to include the slaughterhouse in his story because that was a pivotal part of it. He just couldn't bear to do it any longer. And I also feel like, it's important for people to see that. And this was a humane slaughterhouse. And I say that with, air quotes, because, they only, he would take 7 or 8 pigs at a time, and it wasn't a conveyor belt. And it was, the pigs were fairly mellow, but I think they could smell and they knew what was going on little by little. So the first time I was so focused on, we have to be able to shoot this. And I was so terrified that the slaughterhouse would say no to us and that we wouldn't, that I was really just focused on that. And then suddenly I had a hard hat on because they make you wear, and I was on the slaughterhouse floor, and it was just like, holy cow, oh my God. But then again, I knew a photographer who shot, lots of accidents. He's sort of an ambulance chaser photographer in New York, and he said he could photograph anything as long as the lens was up to his eye. The second he took the camera down, it was really disturbing. And I think that's kind of how I got through that day. And I was working. I was constantly saying, Joe, we need to shoot over here. And also, I really wanted to shoot it in as abstract a way as I could, so it wouldn't be graphic. So I was constantly looking for shadows on the wall, or, but the really brutal time for me was when he drove the last of the pigs to the slaughterhouse. I don't think I've ever been that torn up and traumatized. I was following, just the process of taking the last of the pigs from the fields, and again, it was, I think, 8 pigs, but there was one little pig and he was lame, and he must have been hiding in the woods. He escaped. It really was almost like, a Holocaust or something. He had survived all of the other trips to the slaughterhouse. Somehow he had dodged that bullet, and he had hidden in the woods, and suddenly there he was on the truck, and I was driving in my car behind, and I could hardly drive. I was, hyperventilating and crying so hard I could hardly see the road, and I just couldn't stop. And Joe was able to shoot it, but that once you experience something like that, the injustice of it. And I was driving this little, Honda Civic, and I was like, could I put him in the back of the Honda and get him somewhere? Bob had tried to place more pigs in sanctuaries, and even some of the bigger sanctuaries were like, I'm sorry, we're full. So he could only place 8. But once you experience something like that, and I felt complicit because I couldn't save them. I didn't save them. And so I feel like I too have blood on my hands, and I'll never be the same. And I hope I never experience something like that again. But I think it was important that I did. It was horrible.
Bless your heart. Really. Oh, I can't even imagine, but it's for the greater good. For really being able to take people where they would never have the opportunity to go, so that people can see where that food came from. And that's like you said, in air quotes, the humane slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about that compared to factory farming, and this is, quote, easy compared.
Yeah. Interestingly, at one of the screenings we had in New York State, because that's where the farm was, Bob Comas, the farmer, was in the audience, and quite a few of his family members, extended family, came, and there was a young boy. He must have been like 8 years old, sitting in front of me, and I think he knew that the scene was coming up where they were going to be. Well, I guess they were driving the pigs to the slaughterhouse, and he was kind of clutching his mom's hand, and I was sitting right behind him, and I was like, oh God, I feel so bad that he has to see this. Oh no. And afterwards I apologized to Bob. I said I felt terrible, and Bob said, no, they just came from McDonald's. No, he needs to see that. I thought that was really interesting. It's very important that people be cognizant of what's on their plate, and know that, or who is on their plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I want to expand on that in terms of people with children. How would you recommend, for example, my sister's vegan, and she's raising her children vegan. But at one point they're going to ask questions. And what do you think, just in your opinion, what's a parent to do to be able to be honest? But a lot of parents, want to protect their children. Where's the line? What's just your opinion on that? I'm curious.
Gosh. Well, I think well, first of all, I think that I think that kids, their free choice gets taken away from them at a certain point. And I think that's really too bad. They're not allowed, they just sort of inherit what society has determined is right or wrong. So, you don't eat your dog, you don't eat your cat, but you do eat the pig. And you're just sort of forced into accepting that. And so somewhere along that line, I think we go awry as a society and as, parents, by taking that free choice away from them. But of course, to choose, you have to be informed. And so, they need to know that you can't protect them entirely. If they go into the grocery store and see somebody checking out with a stack of ribs or something horrible, what's that, mommy? I think there are more and more children's books now written, and I think they're written in such a way by educators and by parents who know how to introduce those subjects. The children who have seen The Last Pig, most of them, and I would always, if I spot children in the audience before a screening, I'd run over and take the parent aside and say, we do go in the slaughterhouse. It's not graphic, and almost all of them, well, no, all of the parents said they know, they understand, they know what goes on, it's fine. And the kids were not traumatized. But those are parents who have made it very clear that some people eat animals. We don't eat animals. It's really a choice that people make. I think, that's fair enough.
I agree.
Make them go to a slaughterhouse to see that.
And I think in the parents who are not, there's a lot of people out there who are not willing to even look themselves.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
How do we reach those people with your film? What is your mission? Like, if we just had to break it down.
Okay, it really is to reach as many people as possible. And, obviously the vegan community is just automatically embracing this film. But the people we really need to reach are people who are either on the cusp, like, I don't feel like, it's really what the film is about is aligning your life with your values. And I don't care whether it's about, whether or not you eat meat, or whether you kick your dog at home, or whether you, instead of taking spiders outside, you squish them, or whether you're mean, to your kids. It's like, really, where's your moral compass, and are you living your life in alignment with that? And so it's really important that this film does reach beyond the vegan world. But I realized that the vegans who, immediately embrace this story, they're, the pollinators. They're people have been referred to as foot soldiers. They're the people who are going to go out and say to their neighbor, hey, I have this DVD I'd love to share with you. So I think that's one way that it takes place. Or, we've thought of ways like have screenings and say non-vegans can come free, meat eaters, free admission for meat eaters, or, clever things like that. But the film is going to be on PBS in the spring. And I think that's actually brilliant, because it's not going to be preaching to the choir. And I mean, it's a beautiful film, as you said. It's a treat to watch. It's gorgeous. And it's really about Americana. It's about farming and the changing landscape of farming. And so I'm hopeful that a lot of people will watch it, and it does not preach. It does not in any way dictate what you should think or feel or eat. It really, and one of the reasons that it's so slow is I wanted to give people time to absorb and to think and to apply whatever they're witnessing or feeling to themselves. And so I'm really hopeful that it will reach a wider, more general audience through the PBS broadcasts.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it really is a story about Bob, really. And
yeah,
you could just kind of, everybody, I feel like, can put themselves in his place in one way or another.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And again, he's so real. I mean, he just rips open his chest and this is who I am. And I've never worked with anybody who was less self-conscious. I mean, he would not even an iota of him was self-conscious about being on camera. He is absolutely genuine every breath during that film. And I think the audience knows that. It's not, you're not being hoodwinked. You're not being led to believe something. It's just purely, this is walk in this man's boots for, 53 minutes and, see what you think, see what you feel. That's all it does, is invite you to experience. And I think that's actually really powerful. And I also think, as a result, it doesn't talk down to the audience. It doesn't manipulate. It really lets you access the story in the way that you want to, which I think is respectful.
Agreed. So honest, and in that, so powerful, because you don't need any of that. You don't need convincing or, manipulation. You get to decide for yourself, which makes it, whatever you decide, yours to own.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think if people can just own their decisions, make a conscious choice and stand by that choice, whatever that choice is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And question how you were raised and what society dictates. It's very empowering to do that and say, okay, well, I mean, obviously I'm not recommending total and utter chaos. We do have certain social standards that, but it's more about respect. And, but I think it really is important to look at, what was I taught to believe? And do I really truly believe that? I mean, racial injustice, that's a great example of it. There are many people who were raised to be prejudiced against various, groups of people, and to question that. I mean, right now, I think our society, it's, again, we've got this movement that is encouraging us, inviting us to question how we were raised and what society taught us. And really, I think that, what we choose to eat and how we treat other non-human beings, other beings on the planet, is also a social justice issue.
You know what I love watching? Those little kids, when you see the YouTube kids of kids before they get to that age where they're programmed already. And when they make that connection, sometimes at 4 years old, and they're just,
Mommy,
right?
That's a chicken? I can't eat that chicken. It's so pure.
Yeah. Yeah. Before society has them in their grips.
Yeah.
Looking at the world, from these new eyes and see it for what it is.
Yes. But so many kids, if you think about it, I mean, frankly, I was raised by a single mother who was, rarely there because she had 4 jobs, and we opened Campbell's soup. That's what we ate, and we opened the can ourselves and we heated it up, and no doubt there was some sort of animal product in there, but it was the farthest thing I could imagine from, it just was so off my radar. And so many kids these days, grow up, they're the McDonald's and fast food generation, and it's just so far removed from, mom in the kitchen cooking. But again, I think we're starting to, peel the layers off.
Well, I'd say just about 50-50 in terms of our listeners being vegan already and people that are working on their transition to being vegan. So we have a very wide range, which I just love, that we get to reach those people. But question for you, in terms of the angry vegan, can we discuss the angry vegan for a moment?
We can, but I might not be the best person to ask about it because I'm just so not an angry vegan.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because there's, what can people do? I think a lot of the times, and tell me if you agree, a lot of times when people find out, when they finally do make that connection and they realize all these years, because I turned vegetarian when I was 7 and vegan when I was 15. So I didn't have that many years, but people that are basically like, I've been lied to because this has been hidden from me. Society has just told me this is truth and it's not. And I'm angry about that, which I was when I was a teenager, and I'm still am. There's still anger in there.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
absolutely, there's still anger in there. But in terms of how I transitioned to help the world go vegan, which is my mission in my life, it kind of changed. It's now about inspiring people and showing them what it's like to live in alignment with your values, to not just say you love animals, but then not eat them at the same time, and not ingest that suffering and how good that feels. So just for our vegans out there who are like, I want to do something, I'm angry, what do I do to best help these animals? Besides, of course, spreading the word about the last pig.
Well, it's interesting because I said I'm not an angry vegan, and then you started saying where your anger came from, and I realized I did get angry at one point, and it was at the milk industry when I finally realized what cows go through and how unhealthy it is. And I was angry about the food pyramid. It's all about big business. It's all about lobbyists. And that makes me insane. And it makes me insane. The oil industry makes me I'm angry about that. I'm angry that corporations and lobbyists control our lives and undermine our well-being. Yes, that makes me angry. And it's not just food related. It's, environmental destruction. It's all of that. It's political too. It's, being lied to and being manipulated is a horrible, horrible thing. What is true though, once you become adult and conscious and free, I can go to the grocery store and I can choose to buy what I want to eat. I don't have to, the milk industry doesn't control me anymore. As a child, it did. I'm not a slave to the food pyramid. I now know that it's complete baloney. And I have my own food, my own rules for eating healthfully and combining foods. And so I think what's really gives me hope, because of course these are environmental issues too. I mean, what meat eating is doing to our planet and to our air quality and the fresh water on the planet and available resources is just obscene. It cannot support us. Our planet cannot support us all eating meat. Not at all. Oh, I lost my thread. So I think this is what gives me hope, is that giving up meat, or at least reducing meat. And I love that you have people on the whole spectrum, because it's not black and white. We're all, evolving and growing and learning and changing all the time. We should be, because we're alive. But the fact that we're gaining consciousness about what eating meat does to the environment, and what it does to your body and your health, and what it does to other animals. That's a three-pronged reason to, for us to change. And I think even if somebody, all they care about is their health, that will get through to them. If all you care about is the suffering of an animal, that will get through to that person. If all you care about is looking beautiful and being fit and living longer, then that person will change for those reasons. I think for me, it's like the suffering, I don't know, suffering of animals and the environment are kind of on the same plane. I'm less focused on my health, but I do see the benefits.
Yeah, it's interesting. People come into it for different reasons, right? But then once you open your mind and you're saying, okay, I'm doing this, then it's like we can let our guard down a little bit and say, oh yeah, and I love animals. If you come into it from the health aspect, or you come into it for the animal aspect and you're like, oh yeah, and I feel fantastic and all my numbers are great when I get my blood work done. Just, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Amen. Yeah.
cool.
Oops, that wasn't meant to sound religious.
That's a whole nother topic.
No, the thing is, I really respect everybody's journey. And I think it's important that we do, and that we don't dictate or, get on our soapboxes, because we don't, none of us has all the answers. And all of us, every one of us is completely unique. And so what works for me is not going to work for you, is not going to work for my husband upstairs. It's, it's important to respect one another as individuals. And by the way, non-human animals too, because they're individuals.
Yes, amazing. Okay, tell us the journey of The Last Pig. You said it's going to PBS in the spring. What's now? What's on the path right now?
Well, we created a wonderful teaching project that I cut the film down into 3 versions for upper elementary, middle, and high school, and then created, with the help of some grants, I was able to bring in some humane educators, and we created great, wonderful curriculum to go with that. But because of COVID and the pandemic, that's been kind of shut down-ish. And so the story is evergreen. It's not going to go away. It's going to be relevant, in a year, in 5 years. But so that was really important to me to do. And then, as I've been sitting here during the pandemic, I've thought, we're not able to have live screenings right now, and we did 250 screenings throughout the world. I mean, the film is really popular in other countries, which is great. And we've had it translated into, volunteers have translated into, I think it's 17 different languages, which is fantastic. But how do we still get the word out during COVID? And so I realized that we could stream it online. And I thought, well, if we're going to stream it online, let's do the most good that we possibly can. And I'm a big, big supporter of sanctuaries who take in animals in need. Particularly farm sanctuaries are wonderful, but I support all sanctuaries. And so I approached 4 different sanctuaries that are terrific, and asked them if they would like to be part of this fundraiser. And so we are going to be streaming from the day after Thanksgiving for a week, and streaming the film. It's only $5 to buy a ticket. And we're trusting that people will also donate, be generous, because all of the proceeds will go directly to the sanctuaries. They'll be split between the 4 sanctuaries. And The Last Pig is taking a small percentage to help us get the film onto PBS, because I've got some finishing costs, some technical finishing costs. So it's a really cool project, because what's so cool about it is we don't need a distributor. We don't need a network. I mean, it's just a homegrown, homespun, put it on this platform online, and people can access it. And people, they put their credit card down, and it goes directly to us and to the sanctuaries. Nothing's being scooped off by any other entity. So I thought that.
Oh, I love that. And Anne and I were just talking, and we did a Facebook Live yesterday, talking about the expenses involved in owning, building, running, maintaining a sanctuary. It's not cheap.
No. And in fact, a lot of people ask why Bob, the farmer, why didn't he just open a sanctuary? He had 200 pigs still. And he doesn't have the skills to fundraise. He does, it's not a cakewalk. And especially to open a sanctuary with 200 animals that need to be fed and housed, and
yeah.
learn so much.
Yes.
Such a fantastic learning curve.
Yes.
We will reach out to other sanctuary directors, because these people are so impressive. And in fact, we're having a live discussion at the very end of our streaming, on the 8th day of streaming. The 4 sanctuary directors, who are so dynamic and so smart, and myself, will be there to, discuss and answer questions, and I hope you and Anne will get to attend.
Absolutely. Are you kidding? We will not miss that.
We'll
Oh,
send your questions ahead of time so that we can fold those in, because these people are fantastic.
yeah, no, they're amazing. I don't know these in particular, but I know Anne has been really reaching out and networking and connecting with sanctuaries all over the country. And that's actually, how we met, for those of you listening, was one of our amazing Vegan Life Coach Academy members, Jennifer Torkin. What's her role with you?
She's actually an educational distributor, or she, leads our outreach, educational outreach, but she's my right hand, everything. She wears every kind of hat imaginable and
She's
is
awesome.
fantastic. She's totally awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when we started talking about Hugs and Kisses, the farm sanctuary that we're building, she connected us. And the story, though, what's so amazing was that the pigs that we are likely to be bringing in are coming from a farm, a small family farm. And the owners of that farm fell in love with the pigs and couldn't send the last 11 to slaughter. So,
Oh, and the 11 are at Woodstock Sanctuary right now. No,
no, they're actually still at the farm with these people. What we've been doing, since we don't have animals yet, is sponsoring them. So they're happy to take care of them until, as long as we are paying for all their food and vaccines and everything that they need until we're ready, because all the sanctuaries are really full, especially now with COVID and donations going down. It's a tough time.
that's an understatement.
Yeah.
But are you documenting this? Are you filming your visits there? And
Yes, well, they're in New York. So Woodstock's been the middle person. So they're actually taking the feed and going and actually doing it. We're paying for it from our 501c3 right now. So yeah, it's
visit and
yes,
film yourselves visiting. I think that could be wonderful.
we absolutely will. We absolutely will. Yes, we haven't talked about the other surprise that's coming yet, but we will. Amazing. Okay. Well, you guys, we are going to put all the links in the show notes. So you will have links to, for all the information. We'll have a whole section telling you all about how you can be involved, how you can contribute, how you can see this, the streaming, and attend the Q&A as well. Allison, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful to have you.
Thank you. You ask such wonderful questions and are so warm, and it's wonderful to talk to you. Thanks for all you do.